You're just good with your hands, not your brain, my mom said before handing everything to my sister. So I quit and watched her destroy the business in less than a year. Turns out she wasn't so good with her brain either. I'm 31 years old and I've literally grown up with grease under my fingernails. My entire identity has been built around cars, engines, and the family business that was supposed to be my future. What happened next completely shattered that identity and forced me to rebuild myself from scratch. Fair warning, this is a marathon, not a sprint. But if you stick with me until the end, you'll see exactly how someone can go from being the family golden boy to orchestrating their complete financial destruction. Sometimes revenge isn't about getting even. It's about showing people the true cost of their choices. My story begins at Thunder Automotive, the custom car shop my grandfather started in 1987. This isn't your typical oil change garage. We're talking full-service performance builds race cars, engine swaps, and custom fabrication that makes cars faster, louder, and more beautiful. Growing up, that shop was my real home. From the time I could walk, Dad had me there every weekend. Learning the difference between socket and combination wrenches, reading engine codes, and understanding why certain metals work for specific applications. While other kids watched cartoons, I learned to diagnose problems by listening to an engine idle and properly torque bolts. By 12, I could diagnose engine problems faster than mechanics with decades of experience. By 16, I was doing complete engine rebuilds that would make grown men weep with joy. This wasn't child labor. I genuinely loved every minute. There's something magical about taking broken machinery and making it better than it ever was. Cars made sense to me in ways school subjects never did. My sister Jessica, now 26, couldn't have been more different if we were from different planets. While I learned to weld and fabricate custom parts, she got weekly manicures and complained about getting grease on her designer clothes walking through the shop. She went to college for communications, which apparently means taking professional selfies and writing meaningless captions with maximum buzzwords. After high school, I went straight into Thunder full-time. Dad promised I was building something for myself, that Thunder would be mine someday, that all the sacrifice would pay off when I inherited the business. I believed him completely. Why wouldn't I? Here's where things get twisted. For 8 years, I've worked 70 to 80-hour weeks for exactly $42,000 annually. Master mechanics with my skills typically earn $75,000 to $90,000. Custom fabricators who do my level of work often pull $100,000 plus, especially in our market where wealthy clients pay premium prices. I was working for half my market value because Dad convinced me it was an investment in your future and keeping costs down while the business grows. Meanwhile, Jessica shows up maybe 20 hours per week as social media manager, making $38,000. Her job consists of posting Instagram stories of cars I built with captions subtly taking credit for my work, flirting with male customers, and planning marketing events that are really just company-funded parties. Thunder generates $1.2 million annually. We employ 6 mechanics, 2 apprentices, and we're booked solid 4 months out. I handle virtually all complex custom builds personally. Frame-off restorations, modern LS swaps into classic specialized racing components built from scratch. I also manage the crew, deal with difficult customers, coordinate suppliers, and run daily operations while Dad focuses on big-picture stuff, playing solitaire and taking long lunches. Jessica's biggest contribution was a TikTok video that got 50,000 views from teenage boys more interested in her appearance than our expertise. Dad acted like she'd invented social media and started talking about how Jessica understands the modern marketplace. My sacrifices were substantial. No serious relationships in 3 years because I'm always working. I live in a cramped apartment I can barely afford and drive a 15-year-old truck while Jessica cruises in a BMW company car. My social life evaporated. Friends stopped inviting me because I always canceled for work emergencies. The breaking point came last Christmas with our biggest contract ever. 3 custom street rods for a tech entrepreneur, a 6-figure project that would establish Thunder's reputation at a new level. I spent 3 solid months designing everything from scratch, working every weekend, sleeping at the shop more than home. Jessica's contribution was posting behind-the-scenes videos, posing next to my work with captions like, "Another masterpiece from the Thunder team. So proud of what we accomplished." Teamwork. She spent maybe 10 minutes total looking at the cars. When the client picked up his completed vehicles, he was blown away. He spent an hour praising the craftsmanship and handed Dad an additional $15,000 cash tip saying it was deserved for work exceeding every expectation. Dad pocketed that tip without mentioning it to me. That evening, he took Jessica to celebrate at the city's most expensive steakhouse. I found out from Jessica's Instagram story, champagne and lobster photos captioned, "Celebrating another successful Thunder project." Blessed Archer's hard work pays off. I should have seen the writing on the wall then, but apparently I've always been slow at reading people's true intentions. The moment that changed the entire trajectory of my life happened 3 months ago on what seemed like a completely ordinary Tuesday evening. I was staying late at the shop to finish installing a turbocharger system on a customer's Mustang GT. One of those jobs that should take 6 hours, but always ends up taking 8 because you discover 3 other problems that need fixing along the way. Around 9 p.m., I realized I needed the shop's current insurance policy number to complete some paperwork for the customer. All of our important documents are kept in a filing cabinet in Dad's office, which is usually locked up tight after business hours. But that particular evening, Dad had forgotten to lock it when he left for the day. I went into his office and started digging through the filing cabinet looking for the folder marked insurance policies. Dad's organizational system has always been questionable at best, so I was shuffling through dozens of randomly ordered folders when I spotted something that made my blood run cold. There was a manila folder marked Succession Planning Confidential tucked between some old tax documents. The moment I saw those words, my heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. You know that feeling when you discover something you absolutely weren't supposed to see, but you can't stop yourself from looking? That moment when curiosity and dread are fighting for control of your brain? That was exactly the situation. My hands were literally shaking as I opened the folder. Inside was a complete legal document outlining the future ownership transfer of Thunder Automotive. According to the paperwork effective on Dad's 60th birthday next year, 100% ownership of the business would transfer to Jessica. Not shared ownership between the 2 kids, not a partnership arrangement, not even a controlling interest with minority shares for me. Everything, the shop, the equipment, the customer relationships, the reputation, I'd spent 8 years building, all of it would belong to Jessica. But that wasn't even the worst part. As I kept reading through the documents, I found email chains between Dad and his attorney going back 6 months. The discussions weren't just about transferring ownership, they were about what to do with me afterward. There were detailed conversations about ensuring Jessica's financial security and multiple references to how Tyler will land on his feet. He's got the skills to start his own place somewhere else. The most devastating section was titled Employee Transition Plan, which was essentially a roadmap for my termination. According to their timeline, I would be fired approximately 6 months after Jessica officially took ownership. The stated reasoning was that I would be too expensive to maintain on staff, and that Jessica would need to establish her own management style without interference from previous leadership. They weren't just planning to cut me out of ownership, they were planning to remove me from the business entirely once Jessica was established as the owner. The business that I had literally built with my own hands, the reputation that existed primarily because of my work and expertise, the customer relationships that I had developed and maintained. All of it was going to be taken away from me and handed to someone who couldn't change her own oil. I sat in that office chair reading and rereading those documents until almost 3 a.m., trying to process the magnitude of the betrayal. 8 years of my adult life, every weekend I'd worked instead of having a social life. Every relationship I'd neglected because Thunder came first. Every dollar I'd sacrificed in below-market wages because I thought I was building equity in my future. Every late night, every missed holiday, every time I'd put the business ahead of my own needs and wants, it was all for nothing. Worse than nothing, actually, because they had actively planned to discard me once I was no longer useful to their plans. The betrayal cut deeper than anything I'd ever experienced, because it wasn't just about money or business ownership, they were stealing my identity. For my entire adult life, I had been Tyler from Thunder Automotive. Every major custom build that had established our reputation in the past 5 years was my design, my fabrication, my problem-solving, my blood and sweat and expertise. The business existed at its current level of success, primarily because of work that I had done, relationships that I had built, and a reputation that I had earned through consistent excellence. I took photos of every single document with my phone, making sure to capture all the email chains and legal paperwork. Then I carefully put everything back exactly where I'd found it and locked the filing cabinet. The drive home was surreal. I felt like I was moving through a dream, or maybe a nightmare. Everything looked the same as it had that morning, but my entire reality had shifted completely. I didn't sleep for the next 2 days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those documents. Every time I tried to eat, I felt sick. Every time my phone rang with a work call, I wanted to throw the device across the room. The worst part was having to go into work and act normal, knowing what I knew, pretending everything was fine while making plans that would ultimately benefit the person who was planning to destroy my life. I spent an entire week in a fog of anger and disbelief, debating whether to confront them immediately or plan my response. Part of me hoped there was some reasonable explanation, but deep down, I knew better. The email chains were too detailed, the timeline too specific. I decided to confront them at our monthly family dinner. First Sunday of every month at my parents' house for Mom's pot roast and quality family bonding time. I had printed copies of the most damning documents folded in my jacket pocket, practically burning against my chest. Dinner conversation was painfully normal. Dad talked about some vintage Camaro he was considering at auction. Jessica showed off photos from her latest business trip to Miami. Obviously a company-funded vacation, and Mom discussed their upcoming Caribbean cruise for Dad's birthday. Meanwhile, I sat there knowing they were planning to completely upend my life in 9 months. After Mom served her homemade apple pie, I pulled out the documents and spread them across the dining room table. "I found something interesting in your office the other night, Dad," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The atmosphere changed instantly. Dad went white. Mom gasped and nearly dropped her coffee. And Jessica got this calculating expression. Not surprised, but like she was figuring out how much I knew. "What were you doing in my office?" Dad asked defensively, avoiding the actual content. "I needed the Morrison insurance policy number, but I found this instead." I gestured to the succession planning documents. "Care to explain why I'm learning about your retirement and ownership transfer from confidential legal documents?" Deafening silence. Mom started crying quietly. Dad refused eye contact, and Jessica actually rolled her eyes like this was somehow inconvenient for her. "Look, Tyler," Dad finally said. "This is just business, nothing personal. Jessica needs financial security more than you do. You've got skills to start your own shop." "Skills I learned here," I replied. "Building a business you're handing to someone who doesn't know the difference between a carburetor and a catalytic converter." "I know more about this business than you think," Jessica snapped. "I understand customer relations, marketing, business development. You just work on the mechanical stuff. Just the mechanical stuff. 8 years of building their reputation, and I just work on the mechanical stuff." Customer relations. I laughed bitterly. Like when you told Mrs. Henderson her Corvette would be done in 2 weeks when you knew it would take 6. I dealt with her calling daily for a month, screaming about broken promises. "That's not my fault you guys work so slowly." Jessica shrugged. That broke something inside me. "I work slowly, Jessica. I've personally designed and built 80% of every custom project this shop has completed in 5 years. You couldn't build a go-kart if your life depended on it." Tyler, Mom yelled, "Don't talk to your sister like that." My sister who's inheriting everything I built while planning to fire me 6 months later. The dead silence told me everything. They all knew about the termination plan. "It's not personal," Dad said quietly. "Jessica needs to run things her way. Having you there might be confusing." Confusing, my presence would be confusing to the new owner. I stood up, looking at each of them carefully, knowing this would be the last time we'd all be in the same room as a family. "You know what's actually confusing? How you can sit here pretending this is business strategy when you're literally stealing 8 years of my life's work." "We're not stealing anything," Jessica said coldly. "It's Dad's business. He can do whatever he wants with it." "You're absolutely right," I replied, "which means I don't owe it anything anymore." I walked out and never returned for another family dinner. After that disastrous family dinner, I entered what I can only describe as strategic planning mode. I wasn't going to let my emotions drive my decisions, and I definitely wasn't going to rage quit and storm out empty-handed. If they wanted to play games with my future, I was going to make sure I won. For the next 4 weeks, I maintained a completely normal facade at work while systematically preparing for my departure. Every morning I showed up on time, worked on customer projects with my usual level of dedication and expertise, and acted like nothing had changed. But every evening after the shop closed, I stayed late to document everything I'd contributed to the business over the years. I photographed every custom build I designed and fabricated saving detailed images of the before, during, and after stages. I copied every customer testimonial that specifically mentioned my work or expertise. I documented every process improvement I'd implemented, every supplier relationship I'd developed, every innovation I'd brought to the shop's operations. I created a comprehensive portfolio that demonstrated exactly how much of Thunder's success was directly attributable to my skills and efforts. I also started reaching out to our network of suppliers and subcontractors, the relationships I'd built over years of working together on complex projects. These weren't just business contacts. Many of these guys had become genuine friends who respected my work and trusted my expertise. When I casually mentioned that I might be considering starting my own shop in the future, the response was overwhelmingly positive and supportive. "Tyler, if you go out on your own, you'll have my business immediately," said our engine builder. "You're the only person at Thunder who actually understands what we do here, and you always know exactly what you want when you place an order." Our paint and body subcontractor had a similar response. "Man, I've been waiting for you to start your own place. Working with you is always smooth and professional. Some of the other guys at Thunder, not so much." But my real ace in the hole was Marcus Webb, who owns Web Performance about 30 meters south of us. Marcus runs Thunder's biggest competitor in the region, and we'd worked together on several projects over the years when clients needed services that neither shop could handle alone. Marcus had been trying to recruit me for years regularly, telling me that I was wasting my talents working for someone else. I met Marcus for lunch on a Thursday afternoon and laid out the entire situation for him. I told him about the succession plan, the planned termination, everything. His reaction was immediate and intense. "Jesus Christ, Tyler, after everything you've built there. That's messed up even by family business standards. I need options, Marcus. If I'm getting thrown out anyway, I want to land somewhere good. Forget landing somewhere good. How about we make sure you land on top? I've got a proposition for you." Marcus had been planning to expand Web Performance into high-end custom fabrication for years, but he lacked the specific expertise and reputation needed to compete at that level. He offered me a partnership arrangement, 40% ownership of a new division called Web Custom Works, plus an $85,000 annual salary to start with performance bonuses tied to the division's growth. "I'll do you one better," he continued. "I'll hold off on announcing the new division for a couple of months. When you're ready to make your move, we'll launch with a comprehensive marketing campaign highlighting your experience and showcasing your previous work. Your reputation will follow you, and their best clients will follow your reputation." It was perfect. Not only would I land on my feet financially, but I'd be taking a significant chunk of Thunder's most profitable business with me. The high-end custom clients who specifically sought out my expertise would have every reason to follow me to Web Custom Works. I also reached out to Jake Morrison, the tech entrepreneur whose 3 street rods I'd built the previous year. He'd been so impressed with my work that he'd already referred several other wealthy clients to Thunder, representing hundreds of thousands of dollars in potential future business. When I explained that I was planning to start my own operation, his response was immediate and enthusiastic. "Tyler, you're an artist with engines and metal. Any shop you start will have my full support and my referrals. I'll make sure everyone in my network knows where to find you." By the end of that month, I had everything in place. A new job with significantly better pay and partial ownership, a pipeline of high V-value clients ready to follow me, and a comprehensive plan that would essentially gut Thunder's custom fabrication business. More importantly, I had a clear timeline and strategy for executing my departure in a way that would maximize the impact. I spent another week fine-tuning the details and making sure every piece of my plan was solid. Then I was ready to pull the trigger. I chose a Friday afternoon for maximum chaos and minimum damage control. Jessica wasn't in the shop shocking for a weekday, and Dad was in his office doing whatever passes for work. At exactly 4 p.m., I walked into Dad's office and placed my resignation letter on his desk. Effective immediately, I am resigning from my position at Thunder Automotive. Today will be my final day. "What's this?" he asked without looking up. "My resignation." His head snapped up, face cycling through confusion, disbelief, anger, and finally panic. "You're what, Tyler? You can't just quit. We've got the Henderson restoration, the Morrison project, the Mustang turbo build. You'll figure it out. Or Jessica will. She is going to be the owner after all. This is ridiculous. You're being emotional and irrational. We already talked last month at dinner. You made your position very clear about my future role." He stood up quickly, grabbing my arm. "Wait, maybe we moved too fast with succession planning. Maybe we need to reconsider bringing you into ownership discussion. Maybe, Dad, you planned this for months. You were going to fire me next year without warning. There's nothing to reconsider. Tyler, please. We need you here. The business needs you. The business needed me for 8 years, but according to your plans, it won't need me next year. So why pretend it needs me today?" I cleaned out my toolbox and walked out. Within an hour, my phone was ringing constantly. Dad called 6 times. Mom called crying. Even Jessica called. Probably the first work-related contact ever from her. I let everything go to voicemail. Weekend was absolute chaos. Saturday morning, they had 3 major projects requiring my expertise. And suddenly nobody could handle complex fabrication work. Dad tried getting other mechanics to cover, but they were parts installers, not custom fabricators. Carlos called Saturday evening. Dude, it's chaos. Your dad spent all day rescheduling appointments explaining to customers why their cars won't be ready. Jessica showed up for an hour, took selfies, then left when she realized there was actual work. Monday morning, Dad appeared at my apartment at 6 a.m. looking like he hadn't slept. You've made your point. Come back and we'll figure this out together. Figure what out? You've already decided the company's future. We can change the succession plan, make you a partner. Maybe 50-50 ownership with Jessica. Now you want to make me a partner after I quit. After your golden child proved she can't handle one day without me. She's learning. She needs time and experience. Time to learn what? The difference between a wrench and screwdriver. Dad, she couldn't assemble IKEA furniture, let alone run a custom shop. He looked defeated. What do you want? Name your terms. I don't want anything from you. I'm done with Thunder. That's when I delivered the knockout punch. Oh, and Dad, Web Performance is announcing their new custom fabrication division next week. Guess who's running it? The color drained from his face. He knew exactly what that meant for Thunder's business. Tyler, you can't do that. That's betrayal of everything we built together. No, Dad. Betrayal is what you did to me. This is just business. The next 6 weeks were pure entertainment from my perspective. I started at Web Custom Works and immediately felt like I could breathe again for the first time in years. Marcus had set me up with an incredible workspace. All new equipment, unlimited budget for specialized tools, and complete creative freedom to build the kind of projects I'd always dreamed of working on. Meanwhile, Thunder Automotive was collapsing faster than a house of cards in a hurricane. Carlos became my unofficial source of daily updates about the chaos, and every phone call was more entertaining than the last. Week 1 was a disaster of epic proportions. Dude, they've had to reschedule or cancel 12 appointments because Jessica tried to handle customer consultations on her own. She quoted a complete suspension rebuild as 4 hours of labor. 4 hours. She literally thought a full suspension rebuild would take 4 hours. Week 2 got progressively worse. Remember that twin-turbo Mustang build for the pharmaceutical rep? Jessica told the customer it would add at least 300 horsepower, maybe 400 if we really dial it in. Now he wants performance guarantees in writing, and she's completely panicking because she has no idea what turbo setup can actually deliver on a stock engine. Week 3 brought the first major client loss. They lost the Morrison referral. You know the guy who was going to have us build that custom Chevelle? Jessica showed up to the consultation wearing club clothes and spent the entire meeting taking selfies with his car and asking if she could post them on Instagram. He walked out halfway through and called Web Performance that afternoon. Week 4 was when the financial impact really started hitting home. Henderson came by screaming again. Jessica promised his Corvette would be done this week, but nobody's even started the bodywork yet. He's threatening to take the car somewhere else and demand a full refund for work that hasn't been completed. But the real fireworks started when Web Custom Works officially launched. Marcus and I had planned the announcement, perfectly timing it for maximum impact during the spring season when people start thinking about their summer car projects. We put out a comprehensive press release highlighting my 8 years of experience and showcasing detailed photos of my previous custom builds, carefully avoiding any copyrighted Thunder material while making it obvious who had actually done the work. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within 48 hours of our announcement, 6 of Thunder's biggest clients called to schedule consultations with Web Custom Works. These weren't small jobs. We're talking about 75,000 plus custom builds that would have been Thunder's primary revenue source for the next 8 months. Dad called me that Thursday evening, and I could hear the desperation in his voice from the moment he started talking. Tyler, this isn't right. You're actively trying to destroy everything we've built. I'm not trying to destroy anything, Dad. I'm just giving customers what they want. Quality work from someone who actually knows what he's doing. These were our clients first. We've had relationships with some of these people for years. Had relationships. Past tense, because when Mr. Patterson called Thunder last week asking about his Chevelle project, Jessica told him you guys were too busy for small projects right now, so he called us instead. Funny how customer service works. The silence on his end was deafening. Tyler, we're family. This isn't how family treats each other. You're absolutely right, Dad. Family doesn't secretly plan to fire each other. Family doesn't exclude each other from major life decisions. Family doesn't take credit for each other's work while planning to throw each other away when it's convenient. 2 weeks later, Jessica had her first major catastrophe. She'd convinced some young guy with more money than automotive knowledge to let her project manage a complete LS engine swap into his vintage Camaro. This should have been a straightforward job for someone with actual experience. But Jessica treated it like she was directing a movie instead of managing a complex mechanical project. She decided to live stream the entire build process on Instagram, providing running commentary about how easy engine swaps are and how she was totally in charge of every aspect of the project. The problem was that she kept giving the mechanics incorrect instructions, insisted they use the wrong parts because they looked cooler in the video, and generally turned what should have been a 3-day job into a 2-nightmare of corrections and repairs. The final disaster came when she insisted they paint the engine bay bright pink because it would totally pop on social media and get us tons of viral attention. The customer completely lost his mind when he saw what they'd done to his classic car, threatened to sue for damages, and demanded a full refund plus compensation for the decreased value of his vehicle. Dad had to eat $18,000 in labor and parts costs just to make the situation go away quietly. Carlos called me that evening, barely able to control his laughter. "Dude, she's officially banned from the shop floor now. Your dad literally told her she's not allowed to interact with customers or mechanics anymore. She's confined to social media posting only, and even that has to be approved before it goes live." But the hits just kept coming. 4 more major clients followed the Patterson-Chevelle to Web Custom Works. Thunder's revenue dropped by nearly 50% compared to the previous year, and they were losing customers weekly as word spread about their quality and reliability problems. The final nail in Thunder's coffin was coming, and Jessica was going to hammer it in herself. The ultimate destruction of Thunder Automotive came from the most unexpected source possible: Jessica's own desperate attempt to save the business she was about to inherit. As the company continued its death spiral over the following months, she became increasingly frantic about finding a solution that would restore their reputation and bring back the customers they'd lost. Dad was barely speaking to her at this point, spending most of his time locked in his office making frantic phone calls to suppliers and former customers trying to salvage whatever relationships he could. Mom was having what she called stress-induced health issues that required frequent doctor visits and prescription medication. The family was falling apart, and Jessica decided she was going to be the hero who saved everything. Her brilliant plan was to leverage what she saw as her greatest asset, her social media following. She'd managed to build up about 50,000 Instagram followers over the past few years, mostly young men who were more interested in her appearance than her automotive expertise. Jessica convinced herself that this made her a marketing genius who understood the modern marketplace better than anyone else in the family. She spent $25,000 of company money without consulting Dad or getting any kind of approval to hire a Los Angeles-based influencer marketing company that promised to revolutionize Thunder's brand presence and create viral content that would transform the business. These were exactly the kind of smooth-talking social media consultants who prey on desperate business owners who don't understand the difference between real marketing and expensive nonsense. The campaign they created was everything you'd expect from people who had never actually worked on a car in their lives. They rented exotic sports cars that Thunder had never worked on, hired Instagram models to pose in bikinis while holding tools they couldn't identify, and produced this incredibly cringe-worthy video where Jessica pretended to rebuild an engine while wearing designer clothes and full makeup. The video was supposed to go viral and bring in a flood of new customers who would be attracted to Thunder's lifestyle brand approach to automotive customization. Instead, it got absolutely destroyed by the actual car community. The comment section was a brutal massacre of criticism about everything wrong with modern car culture, with real enthusiasts calling Thunder a poser shop run by social media wannabes and questioning whether they could actually build anything more complex than the fake setup shown in the video. But the real disaster happened when the video caught the attention of an automotive blogger who decided to fact-check Thunder's claims about their previous work. This guy was thorough and persistent, digging deep into the company's history and cross-referencing Jessica's social media posts with actual project documentation. He published a detailed investigation titled, "Thunder Automotive's Instagram Princess Takes Credit for Brother's Work," that included side-by-side comparisons of Jessica's posts, claiming credit for various builds versus documentation, proving that I had actually done all the design and fabrication work. The article went viral within the automotive community, getting shared across every major car forum Facebook group and YouTube channel. The piece was picked up by several automotive trade publications and even got mentioned on a few popular YouTube channels that focus on industry drama and controversies. Within a week, Thunder Automotive had gone from being a respected local shop to being a nationwide joke that represented everything wrong with social media culture invading authentic automotive craftsmanship. The reputational damage was catastrophic and immediate. Existing customers started canceling their projects and demanding refunds. Suppliers began requiring cash payments up front instead of extending the net 30 terms that Thunder had enjoyed for years. Even basic customers started taking their oil changes and routine maintenance to other shops because they didn't want to be associated with the fake Instagram shop. 3 weeks after the video was published, Thunder Automotive was essentially bankrupt. They couldn't make payroll, couldn't pay suppliers, and had no customers willing to trust them with significant projects. Dad was forced to lay off 4 of the 6 mechanics, keeping only Carlos and one other guy to handle the handful of basic repair jobs they still had coming in. That's when Dad called me. And for the first time in our entire relationship, he wasn't angry or demanding or trying to manipulate the situation. He was begging, "Tyler, please, I need your help. Please, we're going to lose everything. I'm sorry to hear that, Dad, but I don't see how that's my problem anymore. You could come back. We could start over together. I'll give you full ownership of whatever's left. Jessica has agreed to step away completely. Step away to what another influencer marketing disaster. Dad, she just spent $25,000 to turn your business into a national laughingstock. That's not a mistake or a learning experience. That's complete incompetence. She knows she messed up. She's learned her lesson. Her lesson cost you the entire business. Why would I want to inherit a sinking ship with no customers, no reputation, and no money?" The desperation in his voice was painful to hear. "Tyler, we're going to lose the shop. We're going to lose the house. Everything your grandfather built. Everything I've worked for my entire adult life. Your mother, this stress is killing her. She's been crying every day for 2 months. That's really unfortunate, Dad. But you made your choices when you decided Jessica was more valuable than the son who actually built your business. I was wrong. I was completely wrong about everything. You were right about Jessica, right about the business, right about everything. I should have listened to you years ago. You should have included me in the succession planning from the beginning instead of secretly arranging to steal my life's work. I know I messed up, but we're still family. Can't we find a way to work this out?" That weekend, Thunder Automotive officially closed permanently. Dad couldn't make the final payroll, couldn't pay the outstanding supplier invoices, and had no realistic prospect of generating enough revenue to continue operations. 35 years of business gone in less than 8 months. The final insult came when they had to auction off all the shop equipment to pay the most pressing debts. I went to the auction and bought back my old fabrication tools for about 20% of their actual value. The same tools I'd used to build Thunder's reputation were now mine, legally and officially purchased from the wreckage of the business that had tried to discard me. Dad was there watching them auction off his life's work piece by piece. When he saw me buying the equipment, he completely broke down. "Tyler, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry about everything. You were right about Jessica, right about the business, right about everything I should have done differently. She never understood what we actually do here, never cared about the craftsmanship or the relationships with customers. She just wanted the money and the status." "Where is Jessica now?" I asked. "Gone. She moved to Los Angeles with some influencer boyfriend she met through that marketing company. She hasn't called or texted since the business closed, left us with all the debt and all the problems she created." Mom came over with tears streaming down her face. "Tyler, honey, please, your father made terrible mistakes. But we're still family. We're losing our house. We don't have any retirement savings left. Can't we figure out some way to work together again?" I looked at both of them, broken, defeated, facing bankruptcy because they had chosen the wrong child to bet their future on. Part of me felt sorry for them, but a larger part of me remembered 8 years of being taken for granted. 8 years of sacrificing my own needs for their benefit. 8 years of building something I thought would be mine someday. You made your choice 8 years ago when you decided I wasn't worth including in succession planning discussions. You made it again when you decided to fire me after handing the business to Jessica, and you made it every single day when you praised Jessica for work I did while paying me half of what I was worth. "We can start over," Dad pleaded. "We can rebuild together. I've learned my lesson." "No, we can't, because I already rebuilt and I did it without you." I left them there at the auction and never looked back. Web Custom Works is now the premier high-end automotive customization shop in our region. We're booked solid for the next 10 months. Have a waiting list of clients that stretches over a year for major projects, and just hired our 8th full-time fabricator. Marcus offered to sell me an additional 20% ownership stake in the company, and my annual earnings are now approaching $140,000 plus profit sharing. My parents lost their house and had to file for bankruptcy protection. Dad eventually found work at a chain oil change facility making $16 per hour. Quite a step down from owning a successful business. Jessica's influencer dreams crashed when her boyfriend dumped her, and her follower count tanked after the Thunder scandal became widely known. Last I heard, she was working at a restaurant and living with roommates in a cramped apartment.